Hello, thank you for tuning in again. Today's episode, we're going to continue our discussion on internal audits. And last time we were together, we were discussing how those internal audits should be evolving over time.
Yes, and thought we would build on that today. And so briefly, let's just show the folks again what that evolution looks like so that we're all on the same page.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about how the emphasis or the focus of each audit is going to be changing as your QMS matures, and we have some great graphics to go along with that. So we'll throw that up so you can see here.
So the three things audits focus on are documentation, which is how you capture your process, implementation, and effectiveness. And these things are define your quality management system.
So here, our primary emphasis, it's going to be we're ensuring the documentation meets the minimum requirements of the standard in practice and in principle. You'll see a lower focus on implementation and effectiveness early on. And again, that's because many of these are just in the process of being rolled out.
So in the next phase of maturity, we already know the documentation meets the requirements of the standard because we've been auditing that. So now what we're focusing on is it adequately implemented? And then we're looking at effectiveness. But implementation at this point is our primary objective.
Yes, and in this phase of audit maturity, you typically would see like a check sheet that just checks the boxes, and sometimes we'll even see organizations that are using a procedure and just auditing that. So which, it points out that they are focusing on implementation with a lesser emphasis on effectiveness.
Yeah, unfortunately, many, if not most, organizations fail to mature from that point on. So internal audits are looked at checking the boxes. Here's what we said we're going to do, here's what we're doing, and checking the box, and not maturing on to the next step, which is what they really need to do.
And that next step is in a mature system, which again is actually where the vast majority of organizations are.
Right.
This is where their audit focus should be.
So notice now on this chart, the emphasis is on effectiveness. Are the processes working? You've already audited documentation implementation, so you know how many times, and you've seen this in so many internal audits, how many times do you have to audit the same thing over and over again? You know it's documented, you know it's implemented, but the question is it working? Is it effective?
Yeah, and many certified aerospace auditors, they did not easily mature to this phase two, which really it's the primary reason why AS 9101 was revised to include pairs.
That's correct.
Which I'm sure all of you are aware, the whole purpose of a pair was to force auditors to evolve to that step. That's why it's called the Process Effectiveness Assessment Report.
I was going to suggest to the RMC that they develop a tool called the Apple to augment the pair.
I'm kind of afraid to ask.
Well, the pair could be for the majority of you folks who have matured and actually controlling effectiveness. For those who don't, they could use the Apple, which would be assessing poor performance lacking effectiveness.
And you wonder why you're not on the RMC.
Yeah, good point. Since we're stuck with the pair, I strongly suggest that you use this tool with your internal audits. It will force your internal auditors, just like it does the external auditors, to actually focus on process effectiveness.
In fact, most of our clients find that their registrars, auditors are asking them to do the same thing. It's a really good practice. And these process-based effectiveness audits, they are not easy to learn. It's one of the reasons why many of our clients actually just have us do that for them.
That's a good point. Well, one of the things we want to look at is the additional aerospace requirements that AS 9100 Rev D added to the ISO requirements for internal audits. And there's only a couple, but they're significant.
Yes, one of them is an expansion on the following ISO requirement. 9.2.1, the organization shall conduct internal audits at planned intervals to provide information on whether the quality management system A, conforms to 1, the organization's own requirements for its quality management system. Note, The organization's own requirements should include customer and applicable statutory and regulatory quality management system requirements. 2, the requirements of the international standard. And 3, is effectively implemented and maintained.
So obviously you can see here that they are requiring that the internal audits determine process effectiveness. For 3, that's what is specifically listed. But what I want you to focus on the note for a moment, that is what the aerospace added.
So again, it says, note, the organization's own requirements should include customer and applicable statutory and regulatory quality management system requirements.
So there are a couple things here that become obvious. Is there evidence that customer-specific requirements in your organization have been identified, and are they built into the internal audit system? Those are 2 things. Also, is there evidence that from the audit records that the organization is meeting these requirements?
So an audit trail for an external auditor would likely be something along the lines of like when you're auditing contract review, what terms and conditions were flowed down. But to the point here, if I went back to internal audit records, would I find they were part of the internal audit?
Exactly. So there's a real potential here for getting dinged for not meeting the requirements, and also an additional finding because you didn't cover this in your internal audit process.
Yes. So there's one other additional aerospace requirement that's added to clause 9.2 with internal audit. So we have 9.2.1. 3 is effectively implemented and maintained. Note, when conducting internal audits, performance indicators can be evaluated to determine whether the quality management system is effectively implemented and maintained.
So in that last note, they're saying can be used. Does that mean this is optional?
Well, if you were going to jump out of an airplane, I suppose it would be optional to pull the ripcord and deploy your chute, but you don't have to. It would just make the landing a whole lot more pleasant.
Well, in that case, they'd be throwing my screaming body out of the plane in the first place, but it's a valid point. So it's not optional to evaluate process effectiveness. And that's why the KPIs were developed in the first place. So much like the parachute, I don't know of any other way to do that. So KPIs had better be a prime part of the internal audits.
Yes, hence the strong recommendation for pears.
Or apples.
So we'll be back in just a moment and talk about importance of audits. Learn all about AS9100 Rev D with our new online course. This is the best resource to rapidly get you caught up on what's changed and what's new. Our course guides you through each part of the standard and teaches you how to implement it within your own organization. Each section is broken into bite-sized pieces, allowing you to work through the standard at your own pace. You can access the course as many times as you want, making this the #1 resource for when you need a quick refresh on a specific topic. Buy it today and get the guidance you need to achieve your Rev D certification. Okay, so why are we stressing the importance of these internal audits?
We had to have some topic to talk about in the video. No, because the standard's going through a major revision.
Yes.
And how else will you know that you're ready if, you're going to hopefully you're putting some effort into getting these things ready to go. How do you know you got it done?
Yes, it's your litmus test of sorts, as well as being, something you need to be doing anyway. But that'll wrap it up for today. And we mentioned this in our previous episode, and again, we want to make it available to you guys. We do have a free download that you can check out. There may be a link below in the description, but the download is Eagle Force's approach to internal audits, and some of the graphic work we showed earlier, those images and so forth, those you should find in there, as well as some other info. So if it's something you're interested in, look for that link, or you can email us. You can hit us up on our website. And along with that, if there's anything you would like to see us cover in the show, any topics we haven't gotten to yet, if you have questions about what we're talking about here, whether it's internal auditing or just anything in general, we'd love to hear from you. We'll talk about it here and address it. So that being said, where are we going to go next with what's coming up?
One thing I wanted to suggest to you too is all the stuff that we've been talking about in this last 2 episodes in the internal audit are really found in the course that we put together.
Yes, that's true.
So if this is something that you're trying to develop and you want some help doing this, I mean, many of our clients have taken this course and found it very useful. Michael will give you how to get there.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that course in the description below. So if you look down below, you can click that, you'll see it. And it walks you from start to finish, whether you've been doing internal audits for a bit and you need a refresher, or you're brand new, you're trying to wrap your head around it, or you just need to know how does Rev D handle internal audits. This will take you from start to finish. It's a pretty handy course. We've had a lot of good stuff come out of it. So, but onward and
where we're going to go next is Jack West, who at one point headed up the TC 176 for America's representation towards the development of ISO, said something rather profound. He said, internal audits without an effective corrective action system is nothing more than a waste of time and money. So what we want to really look at is, okay, what is an effective corrective action system, and how might you recognize that?
Yeah.
So we want to talk about that.
That'll be a good pairing to what we're covering these past couple weeks.
Or Apple.
Oh my goodness, forget the Apple. Okay, we're moving on. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us in any way, feel free to. We'd love to hear from you. And until then, thanks for watching.
I still like the Apple.